Luffy was already the reckless spark that turned East Blue from a quiet backwater into a real battlefield. But what if at Arlong Park that spark was snuffed out before it ever reached the Grand Line? Just how much of One Piece would be destroyed in that single moment? The moment he crashes into Arlong Park in canon, everything feels inevitable. The tower falls, the map room shatters, and Luffy drags Arlong down with him. But in this universe, the stone pinning him underwater does not move. His strength fades, his lungs burn, and his air bubbles rise. Then stop. Above the surface, Arlong stands over a bloodied Nami, Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji, the strongest monster in the weakest sea, while the ocean itself quietly finishes the job. There is no last-second rescue, no rubber fist breaking through concrete, no captain laughing through the pain. The first sign that this timeline is broken is the silence. The waves calm, the tremors in the water fade. The Straw Hat Jolly Roger, torn and waterlogged, drifts down into the dark as Luffy's body sinks with it, swallowed by the very sea that was supposed to carry him to the Pirate King's throne. But what if Arlong survives, Luffy dies at Arlong Park, and the Straw Hat Pirates are shattered before they ever touch Reverse Mountain? This is not a Marine Admiral or a Yonko. This is the first real villain Luffy ever challenged. Winning. In a world where Buggy was a joke and Kuro was a shadow, Arlong becomes the proof that the sea itself can crush dreams. In canon, Arlong's flag burns and Nami finally walks free under the sun. In this timeline, the Straw Hat flag vanishes beneath the waves while Arlong's Jolly Roger rises higher over Kokoyasi village than over every chart Nami is forced to draw. Thanks to his new ability to weaponize her genius cartography, the entire East Blue slowly turns into his personal hunting ground. Each island just another name on a map of tribute and fear. The crazy part was that the so-called weakest sea now becomes the most tightly controlled. No Luffy in Alabasta to expose Crocodile. No Luffy in Enies Lobby to declare war on the world government. No Luffy at Marineford to split the battlefield's aura of absolute justice. Without that one captain, the chain reaction of rebellion never ignites. Instead, Arlong expands. Corrupt Marines like Nezumi and Sure reports vanish. Bribes flow. Hambrand plus Ibi Mao. A brutal fishman with Sun Pirate experience quietly builds an empire while the Shichibukai and Yonko look the other way. Emotionally, the fallout is even worse. Nami is chained to the map room forever, forced to chart the currents and calm belts that will let Arlong's influence leak toward the Grand Line. Zoro survives, but without a captain, he becomes a wandering blade, a ghost hunting Arlong across the sea in a one-man war he cannot win. Sanji stays at Barati, staring at the horizon, never reaching All Blue. Usopp retreats to Syrup Village. His tall tales now warnings about a monster no one believes in until it is too late. And somewhere in Mariajois, the world government finally notices that a fishman warlord in East Blue is not just extorting villages anymore. He is rewriting the balance of the seas. So how far does this single victory stretch? How does one corpse at the bottom of Arlong Park reshape the entire age of pirates? Setting the rules. How far can one victory rewrite One Piece? To answer that, the battlefield needs rules. This isn't a wild rewrite of One Piece, where random miracles or secret weapons appear from nowhere. This is the same East Blue, the same weakest sea, the same characters and power scaling that existed before the Grand Line ever appeared on the horizon. Only one thing changes. At Arlong Park, Luffy loses. Arlong doesn't get a sudden awakening. No hidden haki, no legendary savior crashing down from the sky. Zoro is still wounded from Mihawk. Sanji is still just the cook from Barati. Usopp is still a terrified sniper with more lies than victories. The Marines remain corrupt and cautious. And Nezumi is still on Arlong's payroll. The entire board is identical to canon, except the Straw Hat Captain's body hits the ground and does not get back up. Why does that single event matter so much? Because Arlong Park is more than a local rebellion. It is the emotional and narrative payoff of the entire East Blue saga. The moment he puts his hat on Nami's head and walks toward Arlong's fortress, Luffy isn't just fighting a fishman. He is declaring war on systems that buy people, chain villages, and call it order. But what if that declaration fails? Just how much does the world change when the first real symbol of freedom is crushed in the mud? Without that victory, the first sign that the Age of Pirates can liberate the oppressed never arrives. Kokoyasi village doesn't erupt into celebration, it sinks into silence. Nami doesn't cry in relief, she watches her last hope drown. Instead of a broken tower and a shattered map room, Arlong's flag still flies untouched, his aura of fear stronger than ever. From there, the ripple framework explodes outward. Immediately, Kokoyashi becomes a warning to the entire East Blue. Resistance leads to corpses. Nami's genius with maps no longer frees her. It fuels Arlong's expansion as he charts every marine route, every weak island, every profitable sea. Zoro is hunted. Sanji returns to a Baratie that now knows the Grand Line is an even darker dream. Usopp's stories of a brave captain end with a fishman's teeth. And that's only the beginning. An unchecked Arlong starts pushing beyond a single village, using corrupt marines, Sun pirate experience, and Nami's charts to turn the weakest sea into his personal empire. The world government can ignore one oppressed town, but not an organized fishman syndicate swallowing East Blue. Now compare that to the Cannon Pillars. Logue Town, where Luffy's survival echoes Roger. Alabasta, where a rookie pirate prevents a civil war. Enies Lobby, Pshka, where a single crew declares war on the world government to save one woman. All of those dominoes lean on the reputation, momentum, and faith born in East Blue. Destroy Arlong Park, and the Straw Hat legend never stands tall enough to reach them. So the real question becomes this. If the weakest sea never produces the pirate who shakes the world, who fills that vacuum? Does another flag rise, or does fear win so completely that no one even dares to try? In the day the Straw Hat died, Aftermath at Arlong Park, fear answers that question first. The battlefield of Arlong Park does not become a legend. It becomes a grave. The moment Luffy's feet are locked in concrete and hurled into the pool, the entire plaza holds its breath. Bubbles rise. His aura of reckless confidence does not. He thrashes, stretches, fights the water itself, but against the sea he has no power. Above, Zoro staggers forward, wounds from Mihawk tearing open with every step, trying to reach the edge. He lifts one sword. His knees give out. Blood paints the stone as he collapses, the strongest will in East Blue trapped in a body that finally quits. Sanji dives, lungs burning, but 3 fishmen crash into him at once. Kicks that once cracked stone now meet raw genetic superiority and brutal technique. Ribs snap. His head slams into the tiles. Usopp's shots land, explosions and smoke everywhere. But Gills and Scales shrug off what would terrify normal pirates. A single punch sends him skidding across the ground, mask shattered, body limp and motionless. Was he dead, or did shame push his legs to run the moment he could stand again? No one in that plaza knows. Only Nami keeps watching the water. She screams Luffy's name until her voice breaks. Bubbles slow, then stop. His hat floats for a second on the bloody surface, like the last sign of a dream that never truly awakened before a stray wave sends it spinning toward the shore. Arlong laughs, but the crazy part was that he does not sound triumphant. He sounds satisfied, calculating. He had seen the tremors this boy sent through his carefully built empire in a single day. A human who punched through a building. A crew that walked into the heart of his territory without fear. But what if rumors of that kind of defiance spread through the entire East Blue? So he chooses to destroy not only the pirates, but the idea of resistance itself. Zoro was chained where he fell, barely breathing. Fishmen prodding his wounds just enough to keep him conscious. His durability keeps him alive, and that is exactly what Arlong wants. A living warning nailed to the memory of this war. Sanji is dragged back toward the sea, tossed like trash at the Baratie's dock with broken legs and a message. This is what happens when humans forget their place. Usopp is written off as dead or coward. Either way, his name becomes a punchline, not a banner. Nami's fate is worse. Kokoyashi's brief spark of hope is repaid with interest. Arlong reinstates the tribute system with higher prices, harsher deadlines, and public beatings as the new normal. Nojiko watches Marines led by Nezumi tear through the Tangerine Grove. Roots ripped up, branches snapped as punishment for harboring rebels. Jen stands powerless while villagers who dared to pick up weapons are lined up and broken in front of their families. Just how much can one village lose before it stops calling itself a village at all? By sunset, the plaza is quiet. The pool is still. The Straw Hat Jolly Roger lies torn in a corner. Nami stands alone in the ruins, Luffy's hat cradled in her hands, fingers shaking over the salt-stiff brim. Tears have already run dry. There is only that hollow, ringing silence after a storm. Footsteps approach. A hand, large, webbed, heavy with the weight of a conquered sea, clamps down on her shoulder. Back to the map room, Arlong orders. Her eyes close for a heartbeat. When they open, something is different. Is her mind about to finally break under the pressure? Or is this the first sign that her hatred is sharpening into a weapon far more dangerous than Arlong expects? Nami in chains. cartographer of an East Blue empire. Her chains are heavier now, not just the iron biting into her wrists, but the weight of a broken deal, a dead captain, and a village that paid the price for believing in a miracle that never came. Arlong's first order after Luffy's body hits the ground is simple. The bargain is void. The second is worse. Double the tribute, and any hint of rebellion means Nojiko dies first. The moment Nami is dragged back into the map room, everything about Arlong's rule tightens. Guards at the door, a collar at her neck. Dajaraiwe patrols through Kokoyashi that feel less like policing and more like occupation. The villagers are beaten publicly for daring to hope, and their savior's straw hat is hung like a trophy in Arlong Park, a warning that this battlefield belongs to fishmen now. But what if Arlong's cruelty also unlocks something far more dangerous than his own strength? Because as he storms into the map room and slams Nami's charts across the table, he finally understands just how much power he's been sitting on. Coastlines rendered with terrifying precision. Currents, wind patterns, hidden coves, smuggling routes through the entire East Blue. In a sea labeled the weakest, this is an awakening of pure strategy. He chains the strongest cartographer in the East Blue to his empire and orders her to redraw the world in his image. Every island, every marine patrol path, every route where tribute can be extracted and resistance can be quietly destroyed long before it reaches him. Thanks to his new ability to weaponize her talent, Arlong doesn't need to sail blind into war. He can turn the entire sea into a controlled hunting ground. Inside that room, though, another kind of war starts. Nami is drowning in guilt. Luffy's blood is on her hands. Her hatred for Arlong burns so hot it feels like it should melt the chains. Yet every time she looks at Kokoyashi from the window, helplessness crashes back like endless waves. Open defiance already failed, so what is left? Survival. Cunning. Patience. Nami's aura on the surface changes first. She becomes quieter around Arlong, more efficient. She snaps at villagers, pretends not to recognize desperate looks, and he even barks orders at human subordinates when he is watching. The first sign of her new role is chilling. She points to a village on the map and coldly recommends a faster collection route. The crew laughs. Arlong grins. It looks like her spirit is broken. The crazy part was that this apparent obedience is the camouflage she needs. On some maps, a reef is drawn a few meters off. A current is exaggerated. A safe cove is mislabeled as useless rock. Minor marine officers in backwater bases start receiving anonymous tips about strange fishman activity along certain routes. A handful of villages are quietly steered away from total destruction, their tribute schedules altered just enough to avoid the worst raids. And then pattern interrupt. The camera rips away from Kokoyashi. Arlong's flag rises over a distant harbor. Another island's mayor kneels, hands shaking as tribute is stacked in neat piles. A marine ship hesitates at the edge of a charted no-go zone, its captain glaring at a map stamped with the mark of Nezumi's jurisdiction. In Arlong Park, a war table is covered in Nami's charts, pins and strings weaving a web of conquest across the entire East Blue. Cut back to the map room. Nami's hand moves almost mechanically, quill scratching across parchment. Her chains clink softly. Nojiko's life hangs on every stroke. But in the lower corner of the map, so small it looks like an ink blot, she carves a tiny hidden straw hat symbol. A grave marker, a promise, and the first quiet declaration that this war for the East Blue is not over yet. Broken swords and empty seas. Zoro, Sanji, Aki and Usopp's diverging paths. That tiny straw hat symbol bleeds into the paper like a wound, and outside that room, the East Blue starts to tear along the same line. Zoro is the first fracture. The moment he hits the water, his world goes dark, not from the sea, but from the realization that the man who dragged him out of that execution yard is gone. He doesn't die there. A passing merchant ship hauls his bleeding body from the wreckage, terrified by the tremors still rippling through the currents near Arlong Park. When he wakes, bandaged and half delirious, there is no captain, no crew, no direction, only a name burning hotter than his wounds, Arlong. His dream does not disappear. It mutates. Becoming the strongest swordsman used to mean surpassing Mihawk. Now it means something far uglier, gaining enough power to destroy Arlong with his own hands, even if it kills him. So he walks off that ship the first chance he gets and steps into a new battlefield, the underbelly of the East Blue. Zoro becomes a ghost story, a lone hunter who tracks down pirate crews flying fishman flags, who storms dens of human traffickers that funnel tribute toward Arlong's empire, who cuts down corrupt marines that wear Nezumi's brand in everything but name. The first sign that this sea is changing is the trail of shattered swords and broken jaws he leaves behind. Every bounty poster with his face on it spreads another rumor. This man does not chase treasure. He chases anyone who dares call Arlong master. Just how much longer can the world government ignore a swordsman who is systematically dismantling their quiet arrangement with a fishman tyrant? Far away, another survivor is forced to keep breathing. Sanji is dragged back to Barati, half-conscious, seawater and blood staining the deck. Zeph does not ask what happened. He sees the look in Sanji's eyes, that dead, empty stare that says the captain he gambled his leg on is never walking through those doors again. So Zeph does the only thing he can in this war he cannot see. He chains Sanji to life. He forbids reckless fights, forces him to eat, to heal, to move. But what if healing only sharpens the guilt? Every night, Sanji hears Nami's voice in the crash of the waves. Every plate he serves feels like a delay of execution. Thanks to his new ability to read the currents of rumor from passing ships, he starts stockpiling food, reinforcing the hull, mapping escape routes. Barati quietly transforms from a floating restaurant into a fortified refuge, a hidden stronghold waiting for the day Arlong's banner appears on the horizon. And then there is Usopp. He stands at his own crossroads, staring back towards Syrup Village. He could return and declare that he sailed with the strongest idiot on the sea, that Luffy laughed in the face of fishmen and won. The villagers would believe every word. Kia would smile. The lie would protect them from the truth. But the truth will not protect them from Arlong. So Usopp chooses the path that hurts more. He goes back quietly, no grand stories, no heroic poses. In the shadows of Kaya's mansion, he tinkers with slingshots, just gunpowder and strange gadgets. He trains his aim until the night itself feels like a battlefield. If Arlong's influence spreads this far, Syrup Village will not be an easy target. Then, like distant thunder before a storm, 3 separate rumors roll across the sea. Zoro hears whispers in a tavern of a fishman warlord who now taxes entire islands, turning the East Blue into his personal farm. Sanji sees a fresh wanted poster nailed to a port wall. A cartographer girl with orange hair chained in the background, her bounty tied to strategic maps of the entire East Blue. Usopp, listening from the rafters of a marine outpost, catches a single chilling phrase. Headquarters is preparing something big for a fishman problem spiraling out of control. None of them know it yet, but those 3 rumors are about to collide, and when they do, the whole sea will feel the impact. From one village to one sea, Arlong turns East Blue into his hunting ground. The moment those 3 rumors start circling the East Blue, Arlong is already moving. He doesn't charge out roaring for blood. He sits in that warped throne in Arlong Park, spreads Nami's maps across the table, and treats the entire sea like a battlefield. Trade winds, current lines, tax records stolen from Nezumi's office, everything becomes data. Why waste power on random raids when tribute can flow on schedule? His first moves are surgical. A rich citrus island 2 days from Kokoyasi. A sleepy port that services merchant ships heading to Logetown. A village with no proper marine base, only a token ensign and a handful of recruits. Arlong's officers arrive with contracts, not cannons. Sign the treaty, pay monthly tribute, accept fishman patrols for protection, or watch one house, one ship, one family destroyed as a warning. Very quickly, this stops being just piracy. It turns into a criminal tax empire. Every crate that moves through certain docks now pays Arlong's flag. Every fisherman who dares leave harbor owes a cut of the catch. And the crazy part was that on paper, almost none of it exists. Because Nezumi is no longer just a dirty officer shaking down Nami, he becomes a formal partner. Reports of fishman raids get lost. Witness statements are rewritten. When an entire village disappears under the sea, the file that reaches Marine headquarters calls it a pirate incident with no confirmed species involved. Other corrupt Marines see the tribute and want in, so patrol routes are quietly redrawn, shifting honest officers away from Arlong-controlled zones like the sea itself is bending around his aura. This is where the weakest sea title turns into a curse. Most East Blue pirates are small-time, ragtag crews with rusty swords and cheap pistols. Against a disciplined fishman squad led by a former Sun pirate, they are nothing. Just how much resistance can a drunk captain from some backwater island really offer when a single shark saw slash can cut his ship in half? So we get a brutal montage. A clown-themed sloop shattered and sinking. A black cat Jolly Roger torn down and replaced with Arlong's saw-toothed emblem. Villages that once feared common pirates now signing unfair treaties because this new enemy doesn't just rob, they occupy. And his name spreads like a dark legend whispered in taverns, a monster who walks from sea to shore and decides which humans are allowed to breathe. And in the center of that expansion sits Nami, forced to redraw the entire East Blue in real time. Every new outpost, every hidden cove, every underwater route used to bypass marine checkpoints is etched by her hand. Thanks to his new ability to project power across distance, each line she finishes becomes another chain around someone's neck. But what if those lines aren't perfect? Quietly, she codes in tiny inaccuracies. A reef marked a few meters off. A current charted a little too safe. A hidden inlet left unnamed. To Arlong, it's flawless work. To anyone trying to track his movements later, it leaves hairline fractures in his control. Like the first sign that this empire isn't as invincible as it looks, then the pattern snaps. The map fades and the video cuts to a cold, almost documentary breakdown of Arlong's new economy. Villages ranked by tribute quotas, adults assigned to forced labor on docks, shipyards, and illegal fisheries. Children trafficked quietly through smuggler routes towards Sabadi and beyond. Human lives turned into line items, pay, work, disappear. This isn't a single tyrant bullying one village anymore. It's a regional system feeding on the entire East Blue while the world government stamps the wrong names on the paperwork. So the question becomes, at what point does Marineford finally admit they've lost control of the weakest sea? And how violently do they try to take it back? Freenars is when the weakest sea stops being weak, marine panic and Shichibukai politics. Marineford's answer comes when the weakest sea suddenly starts generating headlines that sound like New World disasters. The first sign isn't a rumor. It's a massacre. A fully staffed marine base in East Blue goes dark. No Dendenmushi calls. No distress flare. When a patrol ship finally approaches, the fortress is half submerged, walls punched inward as if the ocean itself tried to crawl inside. Bodies are crushed, not cut. Cannon metal is twisted like wet rope, and stamped over the ruined gate is a shark-toothed Jolly Roger that headquarters has seen before, Arlong's. At that point, they can't file it away as random piracy anymore. This isn't Buggy throwing a tantrum or some rookie with a cannon. This is a former Sun pirate turning the training sea into his personal battlefield. Just how much of East Blue is already under his flag? How much has been quietly erased by corrupt reports like Nazumi's? Politically, it's a humiliation. East Blue is supposed to be safe. The calm cradle where future officers cut their teeth, not where they get drowned by a fishman with a grudge. And the crazy part was that Arlong isn't just any fishman. He's Jinbei's old crewmate, a Sun pirate, a man who once sailed under Fisher Tiger and swore vengeance on human oppression. So the questions start tearing through Mariajois and Marineford at the same time. If Jinbei is a Shichibukai, why is his former subordinate building an empire in the very sea the government calls weakest? Did Jinbei know? Did he allow it? Or worse, is this the price of using fishman warlords as tools? Inside the Marines, the split is instant. One faction wants to bury the embarrassment and turn Arlong into an unofficial asset. Let him stabilize East Blue by destroying weaker human pirates, then quietly coordinate through men like Nazumi. A leash, not a target. Another faction led by zealous justice fanatics sees only a ticking war. To them, a fishman warlord openly enslaving humans is a direct insult to marine authority and a spark that could send tremors all the way to Fishman Island. But what if crushing Arlong triggers retaliation from fishman factions still loyal to the Sun Pirates' ideals? What if the war jumps from the weakest sea to the entire world? Meanwhile, word finally slips beneath the red line. Rumors reach Jinbei and the remnants of the Sun Pirates. Arlong is no longer hiding his hatred. Human villages are paying tribute. A girl named Nami is chained to his maps, feeding his expansion with perfect charts. The moment Jinbei understands that Arlong is turning East Blue into a symbol of fishman supremacy, he's trapped. As a Shichibukai, attacking another government-tolerated element risks shattering his own fragile deal. But doing nothing means letting his old comrade rewrite the Sun Pirates' legacy into pure racism and blood. So the world government looks at this festering crisis and makes a decision. They won't just send a random vice admiral to clean house, they see an opportunity. Under the banner of liberating East Blue from a fishman tyrant, they can tighten their grip on the entire sea and test a rising star whose name the world hasn't learned to fear yet. The Ghost of the Straw Hat, Zoro's hunt and the birth of a new legend. As the world government sharpens its blade, another hunter is already moving through East Blue's shadows. Roronoa Zoro should have died at Arlong Park. Instead, he crawls out of that ruined battlefield with broken ribs, blood in his mouth, and a straw hat captain he failed to protect. The moment he realizes Luffy isn't getting back up, something in him snaps. The carefree first mate dies there. What rises is a wandering avenger. The first sign comes weeks later near Shellstown. A pirate sloop bearing a crude sawshark emblem drifts into harbor, crew laughing about tribute runs to Arlong. By dawn, the ship is split clean in half. Every mast, every cannon, every flag marked with the fishman symbol is cut down. Survivors whisper about a green-haired demon who moved through the deck like a storm, blades flashing, eyes colder than the sea. From there, a campaign begins. Village after village hears the same rumor. A swordsman who hunts Arlong's affiliates, corrupt marine officers, and anyone flying that jagged shark mark. He walks into a marine base where Nezumi's replacements are skimming tribute and walks out alone, uniforms shredded on the floor. On the battlefield, he is silent, efficient, terrifying. People start calling him the Demon Hunter of East Blue. Others just call him the Ghost of the Straw Hat. But what if this ghost is doing more than killing? With every opponent he cuts down, Zoro learns just how much Arlong's empire has grown. A beaten fishman captain gasps about new outposts stretching from Konomi to Logetown. A trembling human collaborator talks about stricter tribute schedules, entire islands taxed until they starve. Over and over, one detail repeats, an orange-haired cartographer whose perfect maps make escape impossible. Those words hit harder than any wound. Nami is alive, chained to Arlong's war machine. Thanks to his new ability to channel all of his rage into a single, brutal focus, Zoro's path becomes crystal clear. His dream of becoming the strongest swordsman doesn't fade, it mutates. Now it fuses with a new vow. The monster who killed his captain, who nailed that dream to a wall in Kokoyashi, will be cut down. Without Luffy's ridiculous optimism to balance him, Zoro changes. He drinks less, broods more, and treats every fight like a duel to the death. Yet Kuina's promise stays as the last warm ember in the cold. He spares kids who tried to join Arlong's crews. He buries a fallen marine who turned against his corrupt superior at the last second. He is ruthless, but not lost. Along the way, the world keeps almost stitching itself back together. At Barati, Zoro hears about a blonde cook who kicked a fishman out through a wall and refused to serve anyone demanding Arlong's share. In a distant harbor, he arrives just after a long-nosed sniper has driven off a tribute squad to protect a sick girl in her mansion. Usopp's lies and Sanji's kicks echo in the stories, like ghosts orbiting his own. The crazy part was that all these separate battles feel like tremors leading to one inevitable quake. Near Kokoyashi's waters, the half-dead smuggler gives Zoro the final detail. Arlong, now styling himself the true ruler of East Blue, holds court beneath a grisly trophy. A straw hat nailed above his throne, its brim stained and weather-cracked, its aura of defiance mocked in front of every terrified villager. Zoro's hand closes around Wado Ichimonji so hard his knuckles whiten. This isn't just revenge anymore. This is war for an entire sea. He turns his boat toward Kokoyashi as storm clouds gather, knowing the next island won't be another quiet purge. Because somewhere under that nailed straw hat, Nami is still drawing maps for a tyrant. And the ghost of the straw hat is finally coming home. Nami's breaking point. Traitor, double agent, or future revolutionary. Storm over Kokoyashi, thunder outside, ink inside, years pass. Nami is still in that same map room. But the girl who once carved freedom into her skin with a tangerine tattoo is gone. In her place stands Arlong's perfect tool. Older, sharper, moving with the calm precision of someone who has stopped screaming and started calculating. To the villagers, she looks finished. To Arlong, she looks useful. He trusts her now. That's the first sign that the battlefield has changed. Nami doesn't just draw coastlines anymore. She oversees tribute ledgers, adjusts collection routes, and quietly optimizes how his fins spread across the East Blue. Arlong strolls in with that crushing aura of superiority, drops a sack of tribute on her desk, and asks which village to harvest next as casually as asking about the weather. She answers without flinching, because if her hand trembles, someone dies. But what if the strongest weapon she has left isn't her feet or her fists, but her pen? The crack in her mask comes on a routine trip. Another nameless village, another line of houses emptied by fear. A little girl clutches a crude hand-drawn map of the sea, lines wobbly, islands out of scale. She bumps into Nami, looks up with the same wide, stubborn eyes Nami once had, and whispers that she wants to draw the whole world too. Arlong laughs. The moment he notices the family's tribute is short, the air turns to ice. Nami has already adjusted their quota in the records, shaved numbers, tried to shield them with accounting tricks. It doesn't matter. With a bored gesture, Arlong orders their execution as an example. The girl's map falls in the dirt, soaking in blood. That's the awakening Nami never wanted. From that day, her maps stop being neutral. Every line becomes a loaded gun. Quietly, she starts building a network no one can see. Smugglers who dock at night find tiny, almost invisible symbols near certain coves. Desperate pirates chasing rumors of weak marine bases notice oddly detailed currents that lead straight past Arlong patrol gaps. A low-ranking marine clerk, sick of Nazumi's corruption, discovers a set of corrected charts slipped anonymously into a shipment, with Arlong's safe routes subtly exposed. Thanks to this new ability to weaponize information, Nami turns Arlong's own expansion into a blueprint for resistance. The crazy part was that Arlong thinks she is making him unstoppable. His empire spreads. His flag replaces local Jolly Rogers. Tribute flows like a tide. Yet some of Nami's altered maps leak upward into marine hands, triggering small, ugly skirmishes in backwater channels. A patrol accidentally intercepts a fishman convoy here. A pirate crew ambushes a supply ship there. Nothing big enough to destroy him, just enough to bleed him. Then the pattern interrupt hits. The camera pulls back from Nami's candlelit desk, from ink-stained fingers and silent tears, and zooms out into the entire One Piece world. Sea charts stack over each other like layers of a war map. Tiny deviations in currents, slightly shifted island markers, narrow straits that now look just passable for a marine squadron. All of it traces back to one woman in the weakest sea. Arlong thinks he controls a village. In reality, Nami's pen is quietly bending trade routes, pirate paths, and marine responses across oceans he will never see. Just how much longer can a tyrant stay safe when the cartographer of his empire is secretly redrawing the battlefield of an entire era? The clash that never was, a different Marineford without Luffy. The first sign that Arlong's victory is bigger than one village shows up far away, in a desert kingdom that never gets saved. Without Luffy, there is no Straw Hat crew. No Going Merry cutting through Reverse Mountain, no idiot captain punching a world noble, no ripple of open defiance racing down the Grand Line. But what if those missing idiots are exactly the dominoes that once kept the world from quietly rotting under perfect order? Crocodile never faces a rubber upstart. In this timeline, Baroque Works keeps operating in the shadows, the warlord's sand ability wearing down Alabasta from within. The rebellion goes off. Cobra is framed, and Crocodile becomes the unseen king of an entire kingdom while still flying the Shichibukai flag. The world government doesn't lose a weapon. It gains a loyal tyrant. Robin's path twists with it. There is no Whiskey Peak encounter, no captain who casually invites the Devil Child onto his ship. She remains a hunted tool, passed between underground brokers and warlords who want her ability to read the poneglyphs. The moment she becomes too dangerous, the government can quietly destroy her. There is no Enies Lobby declaration of war, no "I want to live" heard across the battlefield of Justice Island. And because there is no Enies Lobby, there is no symbol that tells the world you can spit in the face of the celestial dragons and survive. The Sabaody incident never explodes the way it did. Eos St. Charlos never gets punched on global broadcast. The Age of Pirates doesn't roar, it suffocates. In the short term, the world government looks stronger than ever. The Shichibukai system holds. Crocodile keeps Alabasta stable on paper. Robin's knowledge stays contained. Impel Down remains a sealed tomb because there is no rubber storm tearing through its levels, no mass breakout, no Jinbei, Crocodile, Ivankov, or Buggy running wild on the Marineford battlefield. Ace is still captured, Whitebeard still comes, but the war itself changes. Marineford becomes colder, more controlled. Without Luffy's chaos, there is no last-second rescue attempt that shatters the execution platform, no ragtag army of escaped monsters tipping the balance. Sengoku and the admirals can focus entirely on Whitebeard. The tremors of that war still shake the world, but the government's aura of invincibility comes out cleaner, sharper, almost uncracked. Thanks to his new ability to remain completely unnoticed by the great powers, Arlong's East Blue turns into a paradox. The Grand Line tightens under marine control and Shichibukai schemes, while the weakest sea festers. Fishman flags multiply, villages pay tribute. Human lives are cheap. There is more order in the center, and more unchecked brutality at the edge. So if the Age of Pirates is quieter, more suffocated, what happens when Arlong's empire becomes the last, loudest symbol of pirate cruelty left? Does the world government ignore it? or sees the perfect excuse to cleanse an entire sea in the name of justice. Well, Arlong versus the world, the final East Blue confrontation. The world government finally answers that question with war. Years pass, and Arlong's flag hangs over the East Blue like a permanent storm cloud. His power is at its peak. Every major trade route pays tribute. Nezumi's network of corrupt officers' shields reports. But what if the very strength of that empire becomes its weakest point? The first sign is not a battle. It is silence. Entire islands stop sending tribute. Whispers spread of a human swordsman who hunts fishmen, of ports where Arlong's men vanish and only blood-stained docks remain. Zoro's legend as a fishman slayer grows with every corpse he leaves floating in the tide. Just how much pressure can one sea take before the tremors reach Mariejois itself? Politically, Arlong has become a liability. His brutality is too loud. It is too visible, too useful as a scapegoat. So the Marines stop pretending not to see him. A hardened vice admiral arrives at Shellstown with a war fleet behind him, an admiral candidate in all but name. Battle-scarred, pragmatic, and under orders that sound like justice but read like extermination. Clean the East Blue. Destroy the symbol. If villages burn in the crossfire, the paperwork will call it collateral. As the marine aura of authority spreads, other pieces start moving toward the same battlefield. Zoro sails alone, following rumors of a shark tyrant who nailed a straw hat to his throne. Sanji holds the Barati against repeated fishman raids. The floating restaurant now a strategic target in the middle of marine supply lines. Every attack he repels just confirms one thing. The war is coming straight through his home. Bars Usopp never left Syrup Village. He does not wear a Jolly Roger. But when Arlong's scouts test the coastline near Kaya's estate, the battlefield finds him anyway. From the tree line, long-range shots crack through the air, dropping fishmen before they even smell human fear. The moment he realizes his lies about defending the village have become reality, there is no going back. And in the center of all of it stands Nami. Thanks to his new ability to weaponize her genius, Arlong once used her maps to cage the East Blue. Now she turns that same awakening of skill against him. She redraws currents, charts hidden reefs, and feeds the Marines secret routes that just happen to steer Arlong's reinforcements into natural kill zones. Storm seasons, pressure fronts, lightning-prone cloud belts, she knows them all, and she times them perfectly. Marine warships glide safely through maelstroms that should tear them apart, guided by Nami's invisible hand. Arlong's backup forces slam into sudden squalls, shattered hulls, and scattered crews left as offerings to the sea. The crazy part was that the ocean itself feels like it has taken a side. Yet the irony is brutal. The empire Arlong built by crushing one pirate with a straw hat is finally cracking, but not under another pirate king. This is a messy coalition, a fractured crew that never got to be a crew. Desperate villagers with stolen rifles, and a world government that only intervenes when the cost of doing nothing outweighs the profit. Kokoyashi becomes the final battlefield. Marine cannons line the horizon, trained on Arlong Park and the village behind it. With their orders written in cold ink that does not distinguish between fishman and human, rain clouds gather as if answering Nami's pen. Inside the ruined park, under the nailed straw hat trophy that started everything, Zoro finally steps through the shattered gate. Blades drawn, Arlong's shadow looming over him. Outside, Nami grips the map that can redirect the entire fleet toward Arlong, or straight over her own home. And as the Vice Admiral raises his hand to signal the first volley, the sky rumbles, the sea surges, and the question becomes terrifyingly simple. Who gets destroyed first, the tyrant or the entire village caught between justice and revenge? A world without the Straw Hat pirate crew. The cannon smoke over Kokoyashi doesn't just mark the end of a battle. It marks the beginning of a world where the Straw Hat flag never truly rises. And the moment that happens, the entire era bends in a different direction. In this world, the crew never becomes a crew. Zoro survives Arlong Park as a wounded beast without a captain, drifting from hunt to hunt. His name still spreads, but as a lone swordsman who cuts down pirates for bounties or even works under marine contracts when it suits him. He walks into war-torn ports, leaves battlefields covered in broken blades and broken jaws, then vanishes before anyone can ask what he's really chasing. He's feared, respected, but never followed. Nami's fate is quieter and crueler. Sold as a neutral cartographer, she draws the sea lanes for both Empire and Rebellion. Revolutionary cells pass around her anonymous maps like sacred weapons. While marine fleets use the same ink to crush uprisings before they start. Her ability becomes infamous in whispers, the unseen hand that guides entire wars without ever planting a single flag. She buys villages their freedom with one route, then watches another island burn because of the next. Sanji never leaves the Baratie. Without a captain to drag him into the Grand Line, he turns that floating restaurant into a sanctuary on the edge of a poisoned sea. Refugees from Arlong's expanded territory crowd the tables. Marines, pirates, and broken families sit under the same roof, and Sanji's kicks become a hidden coastal defense system. He doesn't chase all blue anymore. He protects the last place that still feels like it. Usopp stays in Syrup Village, but what if his lies evolve into a different kind of power? He becomes the shadow sniper on the cliff, the long-range defender who drives off small-time raiders before they ever reach the shore. Kaya funds secret fortifications, and the village turns into a quiet fortress that never makes the news. He's a hero to a few hundred people, not a symbol to the world. And that's the real fracture. Each of them still creates tremors in their own corners, but without Luffy, there is no unified aura of defiance, no Straw Hat banner on the Going Merry, no public declaration of war at Enies lobby, no burning of the world government's flag. Impel Down never erupts. A celestial dragon never gets punched on live broadcast. The world never sees someone destroy fear itself with a smile and a stretch. Instead, the East Blue rewrites its own identity. Now it stops being the weakest sea and becomes the scarred cradle of the Arlong War. Reports of fishman raids, human reprisals, and marine cover-ups turn these waters into a testing ground. The first sign that something has changed is simple. Both pirates and the world government start treating even the smallest islands like potential powder kegs. Long-term, the pirate era tightens. Without Luffy's chaotic awakening of hope, fewer wild cards reach the Grand Line. Warlords like Crocodile and Doflamingo face less open resistance and more quiet deals. The world government prefers controlled monsters, and it gets them. Resistance still forms, but it grows in basements and back alleys, suffocating slowly. Just how much pressure can build before the entire system finally explodes even harder, years later? Here's the pattern interrupt. Picture two timelines side by side. In one, a straw-hatted rookie rings a golden bell over Skypiea, marches through Enies lobby, and turns Marineford into a global shockwave of inherited will. In the other, Zoro's nameless duels, Nami's anonymous charts, Sanji's hidden rescues, and Usopp's unseen shots save lives in the dark, while Arlong's early victory convinces the world that order has won. So which world is actually better? The loud age of open rebellion, or the quiet age of controlled survival? The crazy part was that both paths still carry the same question the sea always asks. How long can you hold back a tide before it destroys everything built to contain it? And in a world without the Straw Hat pirate crew, that answer doesn't arrive with a laugh and a punch. It arrives years later, as the delayed wave finally hits. Dover, would you trade Luffy's dream for a quieter world? That delayed wave is this entire timeline crashing down at once, and it forces a brutal question. Would the world really be better off if that wave never had a name, never wore a straw hat, and never laughed at the sky? Or does erasing that one reckless captain destroy something the world can't replace? Because look at the chain that started the moment he fell at Arlong Park. Luffy dies in the dirt of Kokoyasi, Arlong's flag never burns, and Nami is dragged back into the map room as the unwilling engine of an East Blue empire. Her ability becomes a weapon. Her charts turn the weakest sea into a hunting ground, and every new island added to Arlong's control is another scar on her soul. Without that idiot in the straw hat, Hala, the crew that should have changed the entire world, never truly forms. Zoro walks away from Arlong Park carrying a wound that never heals, turning into a lone demon of the East Blue, a swordsman whose legend grows but whose purpose rots. Sanji keeps feeding strangers at Baratie while the Grand Line burns out of sight. Usopp guards Kaya from a distance, a sniper ghost who never finds the courage to call himself a real pirate. On the surface, the sea looks more stable. No Alabasta incident exposing the world government. No Enies lobby war. No Marineford quake tearing open the battlefield. The admirals keep their spotless auras of justice. The Shichibukai system creaks but doesn't openly collapse. Order holds. But what if that order is just a cage with nicer paint? Just how much quieter does the world get when one boy's chaos never ignites an age of miracles? The crazy part was that the Grand Line still slides toward corruption, just without anyone loud enough to shatter the mask. People like Nami and Zoro bleed in the shadows so that the reports say peace. Is that a win? So which altered fate hits hardest for you in this universe? Nami, chained to the desk that destroys every dream she ever drew. Zoro, the strongest swordsman in a sea that never tests him the right way. Sanji, whose kindness never saves a starving future pirate king. Would you really trade their stolen futures for a Marineford without a public execution war? For fewer global tremors? For a history that looks cleaner on paper? Or is Luffy's chaos the price the world has to pay for real freedom? And then comes the last question. How else could this have broken? But what if Jinbei finally snapped and came personally to destroy Arlong's empire? What if a different rookie rose up in Luffy's place, carrying a new symbol instead of the straw hat? What if, years later, Nami walked out of that map room, took the hat she kept hidden, and led her own crew to burn Arlong's entire legacy down? Drop your own what-if ideas in the comments. What if Ace never ate the Mera no Mi? What if Robin never joined the Straw Hats and stayed in the dark? Like the video, subscribe for more dark, high-stakes, alternate timelines like this one, and get ready, because the next wave in this sea of possibilities is already building.